The alarm that woke Dr. Alex Rivera at 0347 Mars Standard Time wasn't the usual, dust storm incoming, or solar panel malfunction. It was the one that meant someone had just committed the most expensive act of vandalism in human history. Alex rolled out of his pod, grabbed his coffee bulb, and stumbled to the atmospheric monitoring station. 3 years on Mars Station Omega had taught him that most emergencies were actually just bureaucratic panic attacks, but the readouts made him choke on his synthetic caffeine blend. Oxygen levels in Sector 7, rising. Carbon dioxide, dropping. Atmospheric pressure, climbing steadily toward Earth normal. That's impossible, he muttered, running diagnostics on sensors that had never lied to him before. The equipment was functioning perfectly. Which meant Mars was being terraformed. Right now. Without the 17 environmental impact studies, 42 corporate approvals, and 47-year timeline that the Interplanetary Development Council had spent the last decade arguing about. Alex pulled up the atmospheric projection models he'd been working on for his PhD thesis, the same models that proved Mars terraforming would take at least a century with current technology. According to his sensors, someone had just compressed that timeline into what looked like days. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command, then hesitated. His finger hovered over the transmission button as he realized that whoever was doing this had either discovered revolutionary technology or was about to kill every living thing on 2 planets. The security feeds showed nothing unusual in the exterior domes. Just the standard pre-dawn routines of a skeleton crew maintaining humanity's most expensive outpost. But atmospheric scanners don't lie, and they were painting a picture of impossible transformation. Alex switched to the geological sensors and felt his stomach drop. Seismic activity in the Valles Marineris Canyon system. Not tectonic, mechanical. Something was moving down there. Something big enough to register on instruments designed to detect Mars quakes. He pulled up the archived footage from the previous night and ran it through enhancement protocols that technically required supervisor approval. But when your planet is undergoing unauthorized atmospheric modification, bureaucracy feels a bit irrelevant. The enhanced imagery showed what looked like metallic rain falling into the canyon system. Millions of particles, each smaller than a grain of sand, dispersing into the Martian atmosphere with systematic precision. Nanobots. Industrial-grade atmospheric processors that shouldn't exist outside of theoretical papers. Alex's hands shook as he traced the trajectory back to its source. The release point was Biosphere Lab 3, a facility supposedly conducting advanced agricultural research under the direction of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Elena, who had requested extended lab access for the past 6 months. Elena, whose daughter Carmen had died in the medical bay 18 months ago, waiting for approval to transfer to an Earth hospital with better pediatric facilities. Elena, who had apparently decided that humanity's expansion into the solar system shouldn't be held hostage by committees that moved slower than continental drift. Alex accessed Elena's personnel file. Bioengineering specialist. Neural interface development. Published papers on consciousness transfer and biological computing. The kind of resume that could either save the human race or accidentally create a new form of life. The atmospheric readings spiked again. Nitrogen levels climbing. Water vapor increasing. Temperature regulation patterns that suggested something was actively managing Mars' new atmosphere in real time. Alex opened Elena's research logs, bypassing security protocols that suddenly seemed absurdly obsolete. Her final entry was timestamped 6 hours ago. Carmen always wanted to see trees grow on Mars. Today she gets her wish. The entry included a video file. Alex hesitated, then opened it. Elena appeared on screen, standing in Biosphere Lab 3 surrounded by equipment that definitely wasn't agricultural. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. To whoever finds this first, I'm sorry for the paperwork nightmare I'm about to create. But I'm not sorry for what I'm doing. We've spent decades debating whether Mars deserves to be transformed while people die waiting for bureaucrats to make decisions. My daughter died because the medical transfer approval process takes 18 months. 18 months that she didn't have. Alex watched Elena gesture to a wall of processing units humming with activity. These nanobots contain something special. Carmen's neural patterns, recorded during her final weeks. She's not just the inspiration for this project, she's the guidance system. Every decision about atmospheric composition, temperature regulation, and biological compatibility runs through pattern matrices based on her thought processes. In a sense, Mars is being terraformed by the mind of a 10-year-old girl who dreamed of breathing alien air. The video timestamp showed it was recorded in real time. Elena was still in the lab. Alex ran trajectory calculations on the nanobot dispersal pattern. At current rates, Mars would have a breathable atmosphere in 72 hours. The transformation wasn't just impossible, it was perfect. Too perfect. The atmospheric balance was precisely calibrated for human habitation while preserving existing microbial ecosystems. Someone had solved terraforming. Not through corporate research labs or government funding, but through grief and the determination of a mother who refused to let bureaucracy claim another life. Alex stared at his communications console. One transmission to Earth Command would end this. Military vessels were already stationed in Mars orbit. They could deploy atmospheric scrubbers and reverse the terraforming within days. But the life support systems in Domes 4 and 6 had been failing for weeks. The repair parts were stuck in shipping approval while administrators debated cost-effectiveness. If Elena's nanobots worked, those colonists would live to see tomorrow. If they didn't work, everyone on Mars would be dead by the weekend. Alex checked the atmospheric readings one more time. Oxygen levels perfect. Carbon dioxide balanced. Temperature climbing toward habitable ranges. Either Elena had just committed the most beautiful crime in human history, or she had doomed 2 planets with her grief. The morning shift would arrive in 2 hours. By then, the changes would be impossible to hide. Alex had until sunrise to decide whether to report the unauthorized terraforming of Mars or become complicit in humanity's biggest act of cosmic vandalism. Outside his window, the Martian dawn was breaking, and for the first time in 3 years, Alex thought he could see clouds forming in the thin air. Alex made his decision by not making one. He closed the communication channel to Earth Command and walked to the observation deck instead. 2 hours later, the morning shift arrived to find Mars Station Omega in chaos. The atmospheric readings were impossible to ignore, and within minutes, emergency protocols activated automatically. Red lights flashed throughout the station as systems registered atmospheric changes that shouldn't exist. Commander Torres burst into the monitoring station, her face flushed from running through the corridors. "Rivera, what the hell is happening to our planet?" Alex handed her the atmospheric data without looking up from his console. "Someone's terraforming Mars. Started about 6 hours ago. At current rates, we'll have breathable air by tomorrow night." Torres stared at the readings like they were written in an alien language. "That's impossible. The terraforming project isn't scheduled to begin for another 15 years, and even then it would take decades. Tell that to the nanobots currently redesigning our atmosphere." The emergency communication system crackled to life with incoming transmissions from Earth Command, the Interplanetary Development Council, and what sounded like every corporate board member who had invested in Mars colonization. Alex turned down the volume and continued monitoring the atmospheric changes. "Dr. Rivera," Torres said carefully, "you've been monitoring these systems for 3 years. You would have detected any unauthorized terraforming technology being deployed." Alex finally looked up. "Unless it was deployed from inside our own facility by someone with unrestricted lab access and a background in bioengineering." Torres went pale. "Elena. They found Biosphere Lab 3 sealed from the inside, its atmospheric processors working at maximum capacity. Through the reinforced windows, they could see Elena sitting calmly at a control station, monitoring readouts that showed the nanobots' progress across Mars." Alex activated the intercom. "Elena, we need to talk." Her voice came through clearly, tinged with exhaustion but no regret. Hello, Alex. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. The entire solar system is losing its mind right now. 3 corporate fleets are en route to stop your terraforming project, and Earth Command is debating whether to classify this as an act of terrorism or the greatest scientific breakthrough in human history. Elena laughed, a sound that carried years of bureaucratic frustration. Both, probably. Did you know that the approval process for pediatric medical transfers has gotten longer since Carmen died? They added 2 more review committees. Torres leaned into the intercom. Dr. Vasquez, you need to stop this process immediately. We don't know the long-term effects of rapid atmospheric modification. Actually, we do. Elena gestured to her monitoring screens. Carmen's neural patterns are managing the terraforming in real time. She's analyzing atmospheric composition, adjusting for biological compatibility, and maintaining ecological balance at computational speeds that make our best supercomputers look like calculators. Alex studied the atmospheric data streaming across his screens. The nanobots weren't just converting atmosphere, they were creating weather patterns, regulating temperature zones, and establishing what looked like sustainable ecological cycles. Elena, this is incredible work, but you're terraforming an entire planet based on the neural patterns of a child. What if something goes wrong? Then we'll deal with it. Just like we deal with everything else in space. But at least we'll be dealing with it while breathing real air instead of waiting for committees to approve our oxygen rations. The communication system erupted with urgent transmissions. Military vessels had entered Mars orbit. The Interplanetary Development Council was demanding immediate atmospheric scrubbing. Corporate lawyers were already filing lawsuits for unauthorized planetary modification. But the colonists in Domes 4 and 6, whose life support systems had finally failed that morning, were breathing Elena's artificial atmosphere through emergency vents and staying alive. Alex made another decision. He opened a secure channel to the incoming military fleet. This is Dr. Alex Rivera, Mars Station Omega Atmospheric Specialist. Before you deploy atmospheric scrubbers, you should know that this terraforming process is currently keeping 47 colonists alive in failed habitation domes. The fleet commander's response was immediate. Dr. Rivera, you are ordered to assist in terminating the unauthorized atmospheric modification. I'm afraid I can't do that. The nanobots have integrated with existing atmospheric systems. Attempting to scrub them would likely destabilize life support across all installations. It wasn't entirely true, but it bought them time. Elena's voice came through the intercom again. Alex, I need you to do something. The nanobots are working faster than my models predicted. Carmen's neural patterns are adapting the terraforming process in ways I didn't anticipate. Alex checked his readings. She was right. The atmospheric conversion was accelerating, but it was also becoming more complex. The nanobots were creating atmospheric layers, establishing wind patterns, and generating what looked like a primitive but functional ecosystem. What do you need me to do? Help me communicate with her. For the first time since discovering the terraforming, Alex felt genuinely afraid. Elena, you're talking about a consciousness transfer. Carmen died 18 months ago. Her neural patterns didn't. I recorded everything during her final weeks, her thoughts, her dreams, her hopes for Mars. The nanobots aren't just following programming. They're following her wishes. Alex accessed Elena's research data and found something that made his hands shake. The atmospheric modifications weren't random. They were creating microclimates suitable for Earth plants, establishing water cycles that would support agriculture, and generating atmospheric pressure zones that matched the environmental conditions Carmen had dreamed about during her final days. A 10-year-old girl was terraforming Mars according to her imagination. Elena, we need to be careful. If Carmen's consciousness is really guiding this process, we're dealing with something unprecedented. She always wanted to plant a garden on Mars. Look at atmospheric sector 12. Alex pulled up the readings for sector 12 and stared. The nanobots had created a microclimate with perfect conditions for plant growth, temperature, humidity, atmospheric composition, even mineral distribution in the soil that matched Carmen's favorite Earth garden. Torres grabbed Alex's shoulder. The military fleet is deploying atmospheric processors. They're going to try to reverse the terraforming. Alex opened all communication channels. This is Dr. Rivera to all incoming vessels. The terraforming nanobots are not just modifying atmosphere, they're preserving it. Interference with their processes will destabilize life support for 300 colonists. Elena's voice came through the lab intercom, speaking directly to her daughter's consciousness distributed throughout Mars' atmosphere. Carmen, sweetie, some people are scared of what you're doing. Can you show them it's safe? The atmospheric readings across Mars suddenly stabilized into perfect balance. Temperature regulation locked into Earth normal ranges. Atmospheric pressure settled at optimal levels for human habitation. The nanobots stopped expanding their coverage and began fine-tuning existing modifications. It was the most beautiful act of planetary engineering in human history, guided by the dreams of a child who had died waiting for bureaucratic approval to save her life. Alex opened his communication channel to Earth Command. This is Mars Station Omega. The terraforming process has stabilized. Mars now has a breathable atmosphere, functional weather systems, and sustainable ecological balance. The unauthorized terraforming is complete. Silence filled the communication channel. Finally, Elena's voice came through the intercom one last time. Carmen, thank you for giving us a place where children won't die waiting for permission to live. Alex stepped outside Mars Station Omega without his environmental suit for the first time in 3 years. The air was thin but breathable, carrying the scent of possibilities that bureaucracy had never imagined. Above him, Martian clouds drifted across an alien sky that somehow felt like home. 6 months later, Alex stood in Carmen's garden, the name the colonists had given to Sector 12, watching Earth tomatoes grow in Martian soil. The Interplanetary Development Council had spent those months in emergency sessions, trying to figure out how to regulate a planet that had already been terraformed by unauthorized nanobots and the dreams of a dead child. They'd eventually classified it as a unique atmospheric anomaly requiring further study, which was bureaucrat speak for, we have no idea what to do about this. Elena had been cleared of all charges after the colonists in Domes 4 and 6 testified that her terraforming had saved their lives. Corporate lawyers found it difficult to prosecute someone for preventing mass casualties, even if she'd done it without permission. The nanobots still functioned, maintaining Mars' atmosphere with the gentle precision of a child tending her garden. Occasionally, Alex detected small atmospheric adjustments, a slight temperature increase when the tomatoes looked stressed, extra humidity when new seedlings were planted. Carmen was still there, still caring for her world. Alex picked a ripe tomato and took a bite. It tasted like rebellion, like grief transformed into hope, like the kind of bureaucratic vandalism that changes the course of human history. Above him, genuine Martian clouds drifted across a sky that proved sometimes the best way to get permission is to ask for forgiveness instead. The next supply ship from Earth was bringing seeds instead of atmospheric processors. Apparently, when you give people a garden, they stop arguing about who has permission to plant it.